With a new coach, undefeated, heading into this game, how do you keep that momentum playing in front of what will be the biggest crowd since February 29th of 2020?
Well, it looks like it's shaping up to be a very exciting day. As you say, a much bigger crowd than usual, one that I don't think many teams have been used to over the last season or so. We're absolutely pumped to be looking at a very good crowd again and seeing so many people to get behind us and create that momentum as we have only experienced on few occasions. So it's like a new start for us in many ways. As far as keeping the unbeaten run going, I mean, look, our home form's been very, very good to this point. The guys have been able to, I think, balance more so the qualities of creation and, of course, making life difficult for other teams and the defensive duties more than certainly we did last year. And I think we've given ourselves a really good platform to work from. But we face an exciting and dangerous Austin team, and we certainly won't be taking that lightly.
Thank you, Coach. We'll open the floor for questions now. We will kick it off with Ben Wright with Broadway Sports.
Yeah, Gary, obviously Austin's an expansion team. Does your preparation change at all, only having a couple games of footage to watch with them and knowing that they're a team who's probably kind of figuring out their identity a little bit, or is it business as usual?
I mean, I would say, Ben, that this Austin team have created quite a nice identity already, and the way that they play, the energy and the enthusiasm, and of course the technical quality that they have throughout the group has given them, I think, a bit of a shape and a picture already. They're very dangerous going forward. Their 4-3-3 shape is I think, clear and concise. Our players within that shape still trying to work each other out, I'm sure. We had that last year, and it's not easy for players to work off of one another. There's often little breakdowns in communication, etc. But I think they've shown to everyone that they very much mean business, and they've started off very well.
Tim Sullivan with Fort Clapham Country.
Yeah, kind of going along with Ben's question there, there's been a talking point that Austin kind of has built with the same sort of philosophy that you guys did with well-known league veterans and augmenting it with a couple of international signings. Do you see it that way? Is that kind of how you see the way that this Austin team has been put together as well?
Maybe in terms of the way that the overall structure of the group is built, but I think you got two very different coaches. Josh has gone about his business in a particular way, and obviously we did in a slightly different fashion. I honestly, other than the fact that they're a brand new team, I don't see too many similarities in the groups. They are dangerous. They throw caution to the wind. They play, with a very cavalier approach, and to a large degree, to a lot of people, that looks good and has been successful for them at this point. But I think you'll find that for one reason or another, they're either going to win or lose games. They leave themselves very exposed, and maybe that'll change when they go back home and they start to see a little bit more of each other throughout this season. But they are dangerous. There's no two ways about that, and they take chances.
Tom Bogert with MLS Soccer.
Hi, Gary. Nice to speak with you again. Kind of a similar question. It seems like there's a lot of similarities, I guess, between the path and approach that Austin took following you guys. I wanted to see if you kind of had the same thoughts or disagree.
Well, yeah, I think the last question sort of dipped into that a little bit. I know a small amount about the way they've, constructed the group and maybe even the sort of budgetary world that they're working in are very, very similar. It looks to me from the outside, and of course it's difficult when you're not in the group, but they look to have a very spirited group, a group of good characters. They look like they're working for one another and a very, very keen to get this group moving and positively making an impression on the league. I think they caught a couple of teams cold early on with the way that they went about their work. They started off with such a vigorous approach that, they've bagged 6 points in their opening 5 games with such a tough schedule on the road. I can't imagine that they would have or could have dreamed for much more. And the other games have been extremely tight. I mean, there's not been a lot in it at all. But as far as the similarities, I mean, their style, the personnel that they've recruited throughout their group is slightly different, I believe, to the way that we went about ours. And I think that's why you're seeing just a different picture in the way that they play and what they're trying to achieve.
Dre Hills with the Tennessean.
Yeah, Gary, what does that mean? And when you start talking about the different style, obviously they play more of a very possession based, at least against the other teams. They like to have a lot of possession and they like to kind of overload different parts of the field. But what does all of that mean for a pair of your players, let's say maybe Lovitz and Alistair? Or when you look at this Austin team, what do you think that might spring forward for your team as far as responding to their playing style?
Well, having looked at and seen quite a bit of them, and I think we're fortunate that we've been able to watch 5 games into this season now. As I said, I think they caught a couple of teams very cold in the way that they played and took full advantage of it. But, in all essence, they're a very bright, very positive, very forward-thinking group. They take chances and they want their fullbacks very high. They want to try and be as aggressive as they possibly can be. And they leave themselves exposed. Now, on some occasions, that pays dividends. On others, they've paid the price for that. But I would think they slowly but surely are starting to work out the balances and the balance off between, earning points. And actually, this is a chance to go and win the game. And they've got some experienced guys in that group who certainly know the difference between just throwing caution to the wind and lasting a tough season in MLS. But what we do know as well is, as an expansion group, it's just not easy. It really isn't. You're trying to bring multiple characters and cultures together. You're trying to formulate a plan and an identity. And, ultimately, they'll want to succeed and be part of the playoff picture as well. And as we look at them right now, you wouldn't back against it, would you?
We have time for 2 more questions, and we have 2 follow-up questions, one from Ben Wright and the next one from Tim Sullivan.
Yeah, Gary, just switching gears a little bit. We've seen Daniel Rios, Brian Inunga, and Abu Danladi on the injury report the past couple of weeks. What's their status and how close are they realistically to playing?
Daniel's been part of the group this week, and he's further ahead than either of the other 2. He won't be available for selection this weekend, no. This is his first full week of training. So we'll be taking a little bit more care and caution with Daniel. Abu, he's out on the training field and he's looking much better and getting himself, I think, ever closer to joining the group. And I wouldn't think he's too far away from that. Brian, he's probably a tad further away than the other 2, and we probably won't see him for another 2 or 3 weeks minimum, I would think.
Tim Sullivan with the final question.
Yeah, Gary, kind of a similar question. But what did you think of Hani's half hour or so on the field on Saturday night? And then how was he feeling, a couple of days later with that hamstring that he's been trying to get to full health?
Yeah, listen, I think we made the right choice in the New England game to give him a little bit longer. I think everyone can understand the reasons that we went with a pair up top after the display against New England. We have choices now, and that's what competition does. We've rarely played with a front 2, but that game alone has given the team, the coaching staff, everyone around the group a different perspective and a bit of a lift, and certainly an appreciation that, you know, if we need to go to that, that's something that we feel a lot more comfortable about, even if it only ends up being a bit of a plan B. So, you know, we'll see. But Hani's in training and he's been great. He was terrific when he came on last weekend. You know, he understands the situation. There's a lot of competition in the group. Players have done well, and he's doing his very utmost to be part of the group this weekend. And, you know, I'll make my choices on that tomorrow.
And I think the crowd being there to provide the energy that we saw briefly at the start of last year, obviously, will be a huge, huge thing for us. But the technical aspects, tactical aspects of the game that we've been focusing on with the coaching staff, I think are pretty straightforward and direct. And it'll just give us some structure to move into what we know is going to be a difficult game.
We will now open the floor for questions. We will kick it off with Drake Hughes from the Tennessean, but before we do that, a reminder to please alert me through the chat if you have a question for Dan. Drake, the floor is yours.
Yeah, what's up, Dan? Wanted to ask you about how you felt after the RSL game and in your individual performance, specifically with the ball at your feet and your distribution, and obviously looking against Austin, the way they like to play with their outside backs and how they like to throw them forward. Do you think that this could be an opportunity to have a lot of an attacking presence against them on Sunday?
Yeah, sure. I think general feelings after the Salt Lake game was that it wasn't a strong game by any means, not for myself personally, not for the team, especially with the ball. I thought we were careless, and myself included. Obviously, we've been working on that and know that hopefully it was a one-off and we could sort of get back to our old ways of being a little bit more decisive and influential, especially in the attacking half, cut out some of the giveaways. But generally speaking, I think that, you know, we've identified some things, like you mentioned, that Austin may look to do that they've sort of shown in their first group of games that maybe give us an opportunity to exploit. That's not to assume that they're going to present the same formation or whatever going into this game, but just things that we can focus on, I think, and personally just getting into advanced positions, helping the team score goals, be dangerous, all that stuff, I think is relatively straightforward. But for us, it's more about ourselves, worrying about what we can sort of improve on each side of the ball and to become a more finished product. Not that we ever view ourselves as a finished product, but I think this is a very important step for us to play against an exciting team in a very exciting and comfortable, you know, electric atmosphere for us at home.
Tim Sullivan with For Clapham Country.
Dan, in a more general sense, you've been one of the top creators in the league so far this year. I believe among guys who don't play as a number 10, you have more key passes than anyone. How do you see that kind of fitting into your role? Obviously, as a fullback, it's only part of what you do, but how do you kind of, I guess, maintain the defensive solidity and kind of add that creation to your game?
Yeah, sure. I think, you know, I'm very much of the mindset that you don't have to sacrifice one for the other. I think you can be sound defensively while knowing when to take risks and to provide quality moving forward in certain moments. And I think the way we play and the luxury that I have of having such a strong defensive unit to work around, and defensive midfielders, center backs, goalkeeper, and the way we defend collectively, I think you see more and more in the modern game outside backs taking a bit more responsibility and accountability on the offensive side of the ball. And, you know, frankly, not a lot of guys are able to capitalize on having the luxury of guys that are comfortable on the ball and are allowing me to get in advanced positions. So it's, you know, my responsibility to, when I do get in those positions, to be more dangerous and to help us score goals. And, you know, frankly, I don't think I've done a good enough job considering how much of the ball I've seen and the positions I've been in. It's nice to have that key passes stat or whatever it is. I understand that, and it's very exciting, but, you know, we need to be scoring more goals, and I'd like to play a hand in that more consistently. So that's what I'm focused on, and I know that the team will continue to play in a way that makes it easy for me to do my job both sides of the ball.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate you taking the time. As Matt finished his gym session, thank you for joining us right after, Matt. A big week for you last week. You got some really good minutes against Salt Lake. And now, how did you continue that preparation and momentum heading into Sunday?
Yeah, I think, I mean, for me personally, it's been nice to get in 2 games in a row now. You know, I'm proud of that personally. And I think the team's in a really good place, obviously, but none of us are satisfied with what we've done so far. I think we want to continue to grow and continue to get results, especially at home now that we're coming back home.
I'll now open the floor for questions, and please, as a constant reminder, let me through the chat if you have a question for Matt. We will kick it off with Tim Sullivan with For Club and Country.
And Matt, last time a couple of years when you found the field, it was in maybe less than ideal positions as the team dealt with a lack of depth. Obviously, it may have meant that you have a little bit less playing time this year, but what does it mean for this team to have more depth up front in terms of what you guys are capable of doing, particularly in the scoring department?
Yeah, I think, Gary's in a position now where we've got a lot of different options in different types of weapons up front. I think there's a lot to be said for trying to find the right pairings up there and just throughout in terms of continuity for us to create goal scoring opportunities and continue to score goals. But I think we've got so many different types of weapons and so many talented players up there. I think we're really at a luxury now, with what our roster looks like there.